So today's topic is career advice for a career in IT or cybersecurity. I want to focus mostly on the cybersecurity, but anybody else that's in here would like to add anything or contribute, please give us your feedback as well. I want to welcome everybody for coming. We've got people from all around the world attending today. We got two people from down under, one guy from across the bay from me, another guy across the office from me, and another guy across the United States from me. So welcome all and everybody here. So I just wanted to start out with this. One, I always get asked this question, especially by students or after I've done a presentation somewhere. And I've always wanted to kind of put something together so I can just say, well, I can't tell you in 5 minutes everything you should know about a career in IT or IT security. But so I've kind of put something together here that hopefully will help. First thing I always recommend when somebody starts a new career, and oftentimes I end up dealing with people with that who are in college, if I'm teaching at the college level, they're always asking, well, I want to get started in IT, where should I start? And I always recommend, because I've changed my career twice in my life, maybe three times. And usually what you do is you get a lay of the land. What is the career field like? What are the other um, what are people who are in the jobs that I want? What are they doing? What kind of resources do they read? Is there any trade publications related to this? The one I always usually recommend to everybody to go check out first, especially if it's going to be in IT or security, is Certification Magazine. And the reason why is because they have a lot of studies on things like what certifications are paying, which ones are the most sought after, things like that. So that if a student or a career changer, let's say it's a veteran coming back from the war or somebody else who's looking at getting into IT, he wants to know what certifications are the best ones to get. And I think keeping track of this over the years has been really useful for that. And I've noticed that over the years, some things that used to be really popular are not as popular. And every year it's almost different. But at least it gives you a direction to go into and what employers are searching for. So that's a good idea. Um, and then I always recommend you just get as much information as you possibly can. If you want to learn something new like Microsoft Azure or something like that, it's just dive in both feet and just read everything that you possibly can about it. Go to all the websites that have stuff about it. Just jump in, see what you can find out about it, see what you can learn. So I always recommend that because I think that that's one of the ways that people can learn very quickly. It also kind of gives you a lay of the land so that you can understand what are some of the different areas there. So definitely recommend doing that. Other types of things is to find out what kind of jobs are out there. What's the job market like? What is the average pay for those types of things? Certification Magazine actually has quite a bit of that information there. And if you just Google it or Bing it, just type in, IT job or database administrator, and you look for things like salary information. There's a couple of websites out there that you can fill out the forms and they will give you the salary information. So very helpful, especially if you're looking at a career change, or maybe if you're just in the middle of your career and you just need to brush up on some stuff. Find out what the job market bears, and how much you get paid depends upon where you live too, right? So you want to check into that stuff as well. And one of the ways that I always try to explain this to people and students or attendees that are asking me questions is that you have to look at your career as if it rests on like four legs. And I put the fourth one in there, who you know, just because that one does play a factor as much as it probably shouldn't. But the other three legs that are the most important is how much experience you have in whatever technologies that we're going to talk about, or security or whatever it is, what certifications you have and what education you have. And those three things kind of set your career up. And the more you have in each one of those areas, and when your resume goes into someplace, the higher it'll be in the stack. And that's just a matter of the way HR people are going to look at these things. A lot of them, they may even rate certain things. They'll give you so many points for an AA degree, so much for a bachelor's degree, so much for a master's degree, and then they may give you points for every certification you have, and they may even give you points for the number of years of experience. And then they add up all those points to kind of weed through all the applicants to kind of pick the ones that they want to do interviews with. course, once you get to the interview, then you have to shine and do all that stuff. But before that, you want to kind of work on these areas. So I kind of made a little graphic here to kind of show you. If you look at your education, certifications, and experience, you kind of got to look at, under education, there's other things. It's not just a degree. I'd recommend continuing education. Now, there's professional certifications that we'll talk about, like the CISSP, requires continuing education. And then there's others that don't require it, but that require that you retake another exam sometime in the future. So I put CE, or continuing education, because it's usually some type of class, maybe something even like this, or getting a degree from a university. Now, you all know that if somebody came to me and they wanted to be hired in IT and they had a bachelor's degree from 1969 in computer sciences, but they haven't done any training since then, they're completely useless to me. I wouldn't want to hire them. So that experience and education after the fact are also important. And to some extent, I've seen on some of the articles that a degree doesn't necessarily play a big role in an IT job role as much as certifications and experience do. But degrees still do give you a leg up, so to speak. But that's not an ending point. It's not like some other jobs you can get a degree and then you're done, and then you're set. You don't have to do anything else after it. But unfortunately, in IT, and especially in cybersecurity, the continuing education becomes very important. Certifications. When you look at certifications, I like to have a book of certifications. Vendor specific and vendor neutral are two different ways of looking at it. Vendor specific is going to be like a Microsoft certification. If you're going to learn Microsoft Azure, you want to get the Microsoft Azure certifications, or Windows Server 2012 or whatever it is, MCSE, MCSA, that kind of stuff. Or a Cisco if you're going to be doing network routing and stuff like that. If you plan to do things in organizations that are going to be wider than that, and not necessarily just having Microsoft products, you want to make sure that whatever products they have, that you're being certified in those things. If they don't have Cisco and you have a Cisco certification, it may give you like 1 point above the other people that they're looking at, but not a whole lot. And the reason is because they may be using Alcatel or something as their network infrastructure. And so doing some homework on who they are and maybe finding out, it looks like everybody in this industry sector, like healthcare or something like that, where I want to get a job, they're all using Cisco. Well, then get the Cisco certification. Anyways, and then vendor neutral ones, just the general Network Plus and Security Plus, and most of the security things kind of fit under vendor neutral. Those are great because they give you a broader knowledge of all the different types of technology that you might encounter there. But I definitely recommend a mix between the two, and again, tailored to the type of job that you're looking for. So whatever you figure out the job that you want, then that's what you want to look at. As far as experience goes, there's two ways of looking at that, I think, and that is whether you have a small to medium business type of experience versus enterprise experience. There's a world of difference between setting up Active Directory for a one-shop location and setting it up for a multinational organization. So yes, you could know Active Directory very well for a small organization, but setting it up for a larger organization is going to be completely different. And so experience in both of those areas is good. Now I'm just going to show you that this is just an example of ways to rate it, and this is all kind of arbitrary, kind of off the cuff, but it's just an idea for you to kind of look at it. Now let's look at another person here, and you can see here, and over here on the right I have a score, and I kind of dropped the score down because maybe they only have an AA degree. Maybe they don't have very many vendor-specific certifications, and maybe they don't have very much enterprise experience, but they have a lot of small business experience, they have a lot of vendor-neutral certs, and they have a lot of CE. Still a good candidate, but compared to our last one, compared to this person here, the first one that we had, this person's resume would definitely be on the top of the stack. And then this individual's would be the next one on the stack. Now, if it's a small to medium business, maybe that's not going to be as big of an issue with this, that they don't have a lot of enterprise experience. So again, depending upon who you're trying to get a job with or the market you're trying to get into, take a look at this kind of stuff. Grade yourself on these areas and you can kind of figure it out. And here's another one. Maybe you have no CE, maybe you only have an AA, or maybe some college, very little certifications, and maybe only experience in a small business. You're going to have a harder time finding a job. but not impossible because you do have some of this stuff. But when you look at it from this area and you look at this, where would you want to put your efforts in at this point in time? I would think that you'd want to do some CE and then do some certifications. Maybe do an internship to get some enterprise level experience if you're looking for an enterprise level job. So at least when you have an idea, like if you have a cheat sheet like this and you kind of figure out where you're at, then you can say, okay, where do I need to improve? And so when you look at your career profile at education, certification, experience, I think that you can then take that and go from there to improve upon yourself and move in the right direction, so to speak. Before I go to certifications, was there any questions on that? And if you can't turn your microphone on, you can just type it down below. And then I don't see anybody typing, so I will just move on. So certifications. Now, for certifications, I'm kind of going to stick with just the cybersecurity side of that. Obviously, with IT certifications, there's all kinds to talk about. So I'm just going to kind of talk about specifically cybersecurity certifications that are out there. And if you look at it, there's the one certification that everybody seems to know about is the CISSP, Certified Information System Security Professional. Though that one has 10 domains, and they just shortened it. It's not 10 domains anymore, but it's basically the same 10 knowledge areas of things covering things from management, risk, audit, network communication, software development, physical security. All of that stuff is kind of covered in the CISSP. Other certifications like the Certified Information System Manager, a CISM, that one really just takes a subset sort of the CISSP, and it really just focuses on the management aspect of it. Then there's another one like the CAP, or the Certified Authorization Professional. That one just focuses on the risk management framework that the NIST uses, and it's actually a very specific certification because it focuses just on that. And then CISA, that's more of an auditor, a Certified Information System Auditor. SANS has a GSNA, which is the SANS auditor type of certification. And I kind of put these kind of just in column type of things as to what areas they're talking about. Network and communications, you have the SSCP, which is a truncated version of the CISSP. But then you also have the CompTIA Advanced Security Professional, and then at a lower level, Security Plus. And then CISSP has some additional add-ons that you can get for it that are more into the network communication side. And then there's also ones that are specifically towards software development. So if you're a developer, there is a cybersecurity certification for you. So you have everything from the software development side, network security side, the audit side, management, risk side, operation side. Kind of all of these are good ones to have. Now, the question is, what type of job are you looking for, and then what certifications you should go after. If you don't have any intent of doing anything like audit, I wouldn't spend my time trying to get a certified information system auditor, because then you're not limiting your options, but the thing that people are going to want to hire you for is to do security audits. So take those things into consideration. Whereas if you do a Security Plus, that kind of covers general network communication security. If you're an auditor, that's a good thing to have. If you're just a risk manager, it's still a good thing to have. Even if you're software development, it's kind of a good thing to have. So it's not a bad one. So just to give you a brief overview of some of the certification organizations out there. ISC squared, if you're familiar with them, ISC squared, what does that stand for? The International Information System Security Certification Consortium. You can go to isc2.org to get that. And here's the various certifications that they have. Basically, we kind of talked about those in the last slide. Now, an important thing to think about this, this certification requires that you maintain continuing education. In other words, that you have ongoing training. Like, by the way, this class or this session that you're attending would count towards that. But you have to have some type of professional certification, professional continuing education. And so because it requires that, it's considered a professional certification. You're a professional, which is slightly different than a subject matter expert, and I'll explain that in a minute. A professional is somebody who gets the base knowledge and then is expected to continue to grow and understand as that changes. Most doctors, dentists, CPAs, all of them will get like a CPA, and then required in order for you to keep your certification is you have to have continuing education. They don't retest you. You just have to continue to go through and get more education. So that's what we mean by professional certification. So another one is ISACA, which it used to be called the Information System Audit and Control Association. They got rid of it and they just call themselves ISACA now. But they've been around probably the longest. They've been around since the 60s. And their certification that's been around the longest is the Certified Information System Auditor. It had a different name in the 70s, and then they changed it to Certified Information System Auditor after that. Obviously, back in those days, it was mostly about auditing mainframes and things of that nature. Today, accounting firms is where a lot of these people are going to be working, and other places like that. Typically most of them are probably employed doing things like PCI or Sarbanes-Oxley type of stuff. And it's a good certification if you like auditing, but it takes a certain type of personality, I guess, to be an auditor. But with it, the benefit that you have with a certified information system auditor is there's not enough of them to go around. So if you're a certified information system auditor, you're probably not going to have a hard time finding a job. You may have to move, you may have to do some traveling when you work, but not finding a job is not going to be an issue. Now, since then, ISACA has come up with other ones like the CISM, which is a Certified Information System Manager. It's better for security managers. That's what it's kind of like geared for. So if you're looking to be a security manager, in other words, you would be managing a department, dealing mostly with risk management, answering questions like, what's the difference between this firewall and that firewall risk-wise. Those folks will be managing those processes. And then they have certification in governance, and then they have a certification in risk and information systems control. Now, the C-risk, it takes all the management aspects out of the CISM and just focuses on risk management. And so another great, and that's a good certification to have anyways, just so that you understand exactly what risk management means. And again, and I think that is probably one of the things, if you're going to be in cybersecurity, understanding risk management is going to be one of the things that may take a while to do. But once you get it, then you get it. It's like a light bulb comes on, and then from then on, you do pretty good with it. The thing to remember about these certifications, again, they're professional certifications, which means you have to have the ongoing continuing education, which is always fun to do. Now, CompTIA has certifications for cybersecurity, and there's a number of different ones. And just to give you kind of like an overview of what they are, yeah, they have Network Plus and they have A Plus and all that stuff, but they also have Security Plus and the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner. They also have a certification for RFID professionals. And they also have one for project management. Related to security, you're probably going to stick with Security Plus and the CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner. And both of those have become very popular. Now, CompTIA just recently switched over the way they do their certification, so that now it's becoming a professional certification where you have to have your continuing education and submit it every year to show that you're keeping abreast of what new developments are happening in the world. SANS. Now, the SANS certifications were very widely popular. And generally, if you have one of these certifications, you're considered what's called a subject matter expert as opposed to a professional. And what's the difference there? The difference is these certifications expire, and then you need to take the exams again. So you have to restudy again, and they update it with new information. So you're either going to pay for continuing education and keep up with your career that way, or you're going to have to retest periodically. Most people find the retesting to be harder than just keeping up with it after the fact. But they're considered subject matter experts because these are very narrow and very particular certifications. Like you're going to be a specialist in ISO 17799, which isn't even called that anymore. It's 27001. But or certified in forensics, or certified as a forensics examiner or a forensics analyst, or certified to reverse malware, or they even have one for legal issues. So they're very, very minute and very detailed in one particular area. So if you have these certifications, then you're going to be like a subject matter expert in a very narrow field. Now, when you're doing your career, you have to take a look at this. It is good to have something like the CISSP that is a very wide certification. In other words, it covers all kinds of things, everything from physical security to like what the fence heights are supposed to be around a data center and stuff like that, to what triple DES encryption actually means. So very wide certification, but when you get to the SANS, it's going to get into one topic and it's going to go very deep into that topic. Those are good certifications, makes you a subject matter expert, makes you very employable. And typically, if you have one of these certifications, you get paid more, generally. If you look at Certification Magazine, generally these ones, if you have these certifications and you're in these job roles, you definitely get a little bit more. Here's some more of their they have more certifications than just those. They have Enterprise Defender, Firewall Analyst, Intrusion Analyst, Incident Handler. They have one for Windows and Unix security administrators. They have one for pen testing, one for assessing wireless networks. Again, I wouldn't spend the time or the money or the time especially studying for this, or the money in taking the classes for it, if I didn't have a job or wasn't going after a job doing one of these very particular things. It's very expensive, their training. It's not cheap. And if I'm not going to do anything related to assessing wireless networks, I'm not going to go get that certification. It's just because it kind of limits you in your job opportunities, because the only thing you could do if you had only that certification is the only thing you're really qualified to do is assess wireless networks, right? Whereas if you have a CISSP or one of those other ones, then you have a broader umbrella of things that you can do. Now, if you're also looking for certifications that are hot, the Department of Defense has certain what they call information assurance job categories, and they require that anybody in cybersecurity have one of these certifications, depending upon what level they're at. So if you're at level 1, then you can have the lower level certifications, but as you move up in either rank or in position within the Department of Defense, then you have to increase the difficulty or the better certifications you end up having to get. So you can see if you're an IAT, which is a technical practitioner, you can get Network Plus and SSCP, but if you're going to be at level 3, you need to have the CISSP, right? So you have to get to a higher certification level to get that. And so now these jobs require it. If you don't have it, you're not allowed to touch machines in the Department of Defense. The rest of the federal government is kind of following this, something similar to this. I believe the State Department is one of them that said, okay, we're going to follow whatever DoD 8570 says. And we're just going to follow it. And if you're going to be in any of these job roles, you have to have these certifications. So if you're going to be in cybersecurity, definitely for the largest employer in the United States, the federal government, if you want to get a job with one of them, then you probably want to have one of these certifications. And again, it's kind of like the whole entire federal government kind of uses this way, or to some extent they're doing some things like this, but they're looking for certifications if you're going to be in there. Here's another one. These are specific things that outside of those normal IA functions that they have, what certifications they're looking for. Now, if you don't look into work in the federal government, that's fine, but this also gives you an idea of where I want to be in my career, what certifications are most equivalent to it. Then this is a good place to start and take a look at. Then I would say secondary or maybe even tertiary certifications. Things that you would add on to those certifications. So you have your vendor neutral, vendor specific, and then you have your security certifications if you're in cybersecurity. That doesn't necessarily make you all well-rounded individual when it comes to, especially if you get into the management aspects. If you're just going to be a practitioner, admin, or somebody at the lower levels, then those are probably fine. But if you get into the management aspects within an organization, then you need to understand how organizations work. And there's going to be some things that are going to help promote you higher than others that don't have these things, especially like project management skills. Because typically if you become a manager, one of the things you end up having to do is deal with projects. Even I, as an auditor, I have every audit is basically a project, and I have to figure out, timing and when we're going to be able to do the audit and who do I have to see and what resources are necessary for that. So project management is also a very important skill to have when you're talking about a secondary certification after the cybersecurity certifications that we talked about. CompTIA has one. It's called Project Plus. Then other ones like ITIL or Microsoft Operations Framework, which both of those are very similar to each other. ITIL is a United Kingdom thing. It's not a U.S. thing, but a lot of U.S. companies use it. It's about service support, which is, things like uptime and how do you make sure that you are meeting the needs of the end users and stuff like that. Great stuff to have in your back pocket, especially if you're just going to be in IT in general. But if you're going to be in cybersecurity, it never hurts to have this because it usually relates very closely to security. And then quality assurance type of certifications, ISO has some, and then there's things like Six Sigma where they have, green belt and stuff like that. Those things are really about quality assurance. And when you wrap that into things like the Microsoft Operations Framework or ITIL, it's about taking, what's going wrong with our system and how do we improve that service so that it's better in the future. And so there's different ways of dealing with that. And so those are certifications, especially the Six Sigma is one that I've seen quite a bit lately on requests and stuff like that. On resumes too, I see that a little bit more. So before I go on to that one, is there any other questions on the certifications that we talked about? And if you don't want to turn off your mic, you can always just type in something. Someone's typing something in. No, good stuff, mate. All right, thanks, Wayne. Interesting, Rob, because you have some of the SANS certifications, so I know you recently went through all of that, so I think you would probably know a lot about that stuff.
So, hey, Don.
Yes.
The MOF stuff,
Uh-huh.
just kind of for anybody that's looking to pursue that stuff's available for free. It's a free download.
Yes, that's a good point, Rob. Thanks. Rob was just pointing out that the Microsoft Operations Framework stuff is a free stuff. ITIL you have to pay for, and they're almost the same stuff. They just use different wording for the same stuff.
Hey, one thing about the SANS exams.
Yes.
When you take those, you can't go back and change your answers. So just to let everybody know, if you are going to go down this track with the SANS exams, when you are presented with your 150 questions, as an example, you have one shot at picking the correct answer. That's it.
Wow, that's a tough one. Hey, Rob,
Yeah.
you recently took some of them. So on toughness scale, how hard were they?
On the knowledge side, they're pretty on par with everything else. The difficulty is that you can't go back and change an answer because sometimes, we've taken several exams in our careers that, 3 questions later, your brain's processed what you just went through and went, that was the answer. And you go back on other exams. This one is, it's a single shot. That's it. And for me, part of the process for the SANS track, I'm going down to eventually become an instructor for them. They have different levels of requirements for their exams if you want to be an instructor. So the exam I took, passing score was 73 out of 150 questions. You had to have 73%. If you wanted to be an instructor, you had to score over 85. So, yeah, they put different levels based on what your own criteria is going to be.
Well, that's good to know. That's really
so just a heads up if you want to go down that track. They are somewhat challenging, especially when you start getting into the more specific ones. They are very focused on what it is they want to be tested on. So,
yeah,
like most of the other ones we've all gone through. But.
Yeah. Well, good. That's great information to have.
Yep.
Okay, so the next section here, I'm going to go over just a little bit about using LinkedIn. One of the things you're doing is if you're in a career and you need to move on to another location, which a lot of times that is what has to happen for people to get raises. That's just the way it is. Also, if you are a career changer and you're just starting to get into IT and cybersecurity, one of the best websites to use for this, and that's kind of put yourself out there, is LinkedIn. So I'm going to tell you some of the stuff that I've done with LinkedIn and just some of the stuff about using it to its best potential. One of the reasons why I bring this up, I've gotten more job requests, not job requests necessarily where I've been hired and someone's hired me, but billable work for the company that I work for now has come through LinkedIn. In fact, the majority of the extra work that I've ended up doing has come from LinkedIn. Because I knew somebody, and then you know somebody, and they know somebody, and all this kind of stuff. So it's very useful if you use it. However, I look at a lot of people's profiles, and they don't really leverage it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about leveraging it here. One thing that I think of when I take a look at it is when you first log into LinkedIn, there's a dashboard, and they always have some type of thing right up here that tells you, it says, tells you what you can do to improve your profile, like reconnect with your colleagues. Here is one of the things it says, and it basically looks at other people that have worked at the same place you have and tries to get you to connect up with them. Also on the right hand side has things right here where it says people you know. So take a look at that. If you actually know the people, then connect with them. If you don't know them, you may not want to, right? Now, once you look at your profile, again, you're going to see things like this where it says that somebody has endorsed you for a skill or something like that. You notice here mine, it says, hey, these people have endorsed you, but you have 50 skills, and you're only allowed to have 50 skills, and you have to remove 3 of them to add these 3. There's only one bad thing about that, but usually in order to get these, you have to give them to other people. So if you know people, I recommend that you say, yes, they have that skill. I do not recommend that you say that somebody that you don't know has a skill that you don't know they have. I think that's a bad thing to do and a bad precedence to start. But generally, if I know the person and I know the person knows this stuff, I will definitely endorse them for what I know, especially if I've had experience with it. And then also look at your profile strength over here to the right. When you log at your profile in your edit mode or whatever, it's going to show you how strong your profile is. And that's basically saying how well you filled out and completed all the forms. The better off it is, again, if this is something that you're going to use to get work, you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. So everything in here should be professional, working it so that you're showing off all your good talents. So other things that you can also do, notifying people of your network. So if there's a change in something like your employment or you post something up, it will put a thing on the timeline, so to speak, to kind of put out there that you've done something new or whatever it is. If you have a work anniversary, I just had my 20th work anniversary for where I work at Mays & Associates, and it posted that up there, and then people see it and then they, comment on it. And I'll show you an example of that a little bit later. If you turn that off, then you start to fly underneath people's radars, right? And people don't see you. Now you have the ability to put things up like slides and documents that you've done. I recommend that you do that. Here's the big trick about this. This is a big, huge database, and it's a database of thousands of other people trying to get jobs as well. Now, not everybody's necessarily looking to get a job, but maybe they want to just get billable work or whatever it is. You're competing with every one of those other people. So maybe I shouldn't tell you all this stuff. Just kidding. I'll tell you. Anyways, so the more stuff that you have in there and the more information that you put in there, like putting these slides and stuff in there, they're very helpful, because then all of that and all the wording that's in there, then when they look up something like cybersecurity, if I didn't have cybersecurity somewhere else in my job description, but I have it here, I'm going to show up in test search results. So again, trying to optimize this for search results as well is a big thing. So adding what you can, especially like if you've done presentations or YouTube, you can put YouTube videos up here and stuff like that. You just give it the link from the YouTube video, you put it in there, and then it automatically does the embedding for you. You don't have to do anything with it. Any of that kind of stuff that's professional, then I would put it on there. If it's not professional, don't do it. You got to keep this all above board. I wrote a newspaper, an article for security something, whatever ISC Squared's magazine is. I forgot what it's called. Anyways, I wrote a column for them, and so they gave me a PDF of the column. So I just took that and I posted that as one of those items. So I recommend putting stuff like that. Again, if somebody's looking for evaluate cloud service providers, my name's going to come up in the search results. Do you see what I'm saying when I'm saying that? So anytime you can put stuff on there, plus if somebody's looking and you were actively looking for stuff, I know a lot of trainers and stuff like that. If you're looking for gigs and stuff like that, definitely recommend putting in some of the examples of your work and stuff like that, because that kind of helps with that. So Yeah, adding those types of things. Here's how it looks. When you have an employer or some place that you work for, like I work at Coastline Community College, and I haven't added any media, notice it says I can add a document, a photo, a link, a video, a presentation, whatever. Then you can click on it. If you make a presentation, it'll actually put it up in SlideShare for you, because now SlideShare is owned by LinkedIn, so it all kind of works together. But I definitely recommend that you put that in there. And again, when you put down your job description and all this stuff, it's going to be text that's searchable. So again, if you're looking for that job in cybersecurity, you need to say cybersecurity a lot of times, or whatever it is. And the key is also to know if somebody was looking for you or the job that you wanted to get, what would they be looking for? Right. So asking those types of questions, making sure that those words are in your profile, so that they show up. LinkedIn has an area for you to put your certifications in. Again, this becomes more searchable information. And because it's specifically under certifications, LinkedIn has the ability to do a search where you can say, I only want to find people that have CISSP certification, right? So that's what you want to make sure that you have all those. Now you'll notice here that when I get to my Microsoft stuff, I just have the Microsoft stuff just listed because I just have too many and it makes it look ridiculously long. But the security ones, the cybersecurity ones, those are where my bread and butter is. That's what my work is all about. I make sure that each one of those are listed individually because those are the ones that are important for me. Again, helping with the search. You may even want to put in expired ones because you have the ability to put the dates that you had it in. So if it's an expired certification, it may be worth putting in there as well. Now, if you're a Microsoft trainer, I would then definitely put in all the Microsoft stuff if that is what you're doing all the time. I didn't do it because my big thing is cybersecurity, so I did that. And besides, I think I have like 50 certifications, and it would just be ridiculous. Here's an example of the skills. You're limited to 50 skills, so you have to pick the ones you want very carefully. In order to get other people to endorse you, you need to endorse them. Once they've endorsed you, then they see you, and then people start endorsing each other back and forth. And if you're actively endorsing people, LinkedIn will put up at the top of your profile, it says, hey, these people have these skills. Click yes if they do, and then you say yes, and it gives them an endorsement for it. Typically, the more you endorse, the more likely other people will be to endorse you. And again, I do not recommend just endorsing anybody for anything. I look at the person that I'm doing, and if I don't know them, I do not endorse them for stuff. I may connect to them, and I'm a little picky about that too, but I'm not too picky about who I connect with, because again, the more people in my network, the more likely people will find me in their search results. So again, search results are all what it's all about. Education, make sure you put down your education. You want to fill it out properly. I've looked at a lot of people's profiles on here, and sometimes I just shake my head. They just say they went to this university. Okay, well, what did you study? If I'm going to hire somebody, and you're going to put your LinkedIn profile as something on your resume that somebody can see, because here's the thing with a resume, you can't put in 20 pages of stuff on your resume. That's what LinkedIn's for. So LinkedIn is the extended version. So you give them the truncated version, and in the truncated version, you say, here's my LinkedIn profile if you want more information. They click on it, then they can see all the other stuff. So that's where you want to put in your school you went to, what degree it was. Did you have any what was the dates that you did it? Were you a part of any societies, or what activities were you a part of? You can also list classes, and I'll show that a little bit later because that's kind of like under another part when you do the editing, but you can add them from here too. And again, also if you did a presentation or you wrote a dissertation or whatever, did a project for your MBA, you can add the Word document or PDF document to it as well. So if you wanted to advertise that there as well, that's helpful. Also, you can put your grades in there. You can put your GPA so that somebody who looks at it can see what your grade point average is if that's something that you think is desirable. Of course, if you have a really low one, you may not want to put it in there. I don't know. Here's an example of courses. Again, because I'm in cybersecurity and IT, actually under Las Madonas, I took a lot more classes than this, but I only listed the IT classes that I took. I didn't list all the math and English and all those classes I took because they're not really relevant to what I want people to find me for. But every one of these, again, there's words in here, right? So there's a lot of MCSE 2003, which is completely irrelevant today, but not completely irrelevant, but although that's an old certification, that's a class that I took, and if somebody typed in for whatever reason MCSE, I'm going to show up in the results because there it's listed there, plus it's listed other places in my profile. And if I didn't have privacy written down in my thing, because one of the classes I took was privacy, now I'm in the search results, whereas before I wasn't. So listing the classes that you're taking is really important because it helps add more bulk, more text, more searchable text for your profile so you can find more. And again, I'd say limit it to relevant ones to your profession. And secondary type of things like project management and stuff like that, those would be good things to include in here as well. But I wouldn't get into basket weaving if that's what that's not going to help you get a job. So if you have any honors or awards, I always think of it as extra credit. It may or may not have any influence on whether you get a job or not. But if you have something, put it in there. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. If it's specifically related to your profession, then it's really a good idea. Like you got Teacher of the Year award and you're an instructor. Well, that's a good award to have and to show. But if you get something like this one, recognition from California State Senate, well, that really has nothing to do with my job. But it may if I'm looking for a management position, maybe. But generally it's not going to hurt, but it may not help a whole lot. Depending upon the wording, again, could help you in your search results. Do you do any volunteer work? Definitely recommend if you do any volunteer work that you put that in there. It used to be called philanthropy, right? And it used to be a thing that people would always say, in your resume, always show that you're doing something extra because it shows the employer that you're willing to go above and beyond. You're willing to go out and help in other people's. And obviously here with mine, because a lot of it's related to veterans, it shows that I'm willing to help out veterans and stuff like that. May or may not help. But again, adding you into more search results. And they have extra information. They have additional information that you can add, and they have organizations that you can add. Again, I definitely recommend that you add any organizations related to your professional career. So, for example, obviously I'm a member of ISACA because as a certified information system auditor, I'm automatically a member of that. But other things in ISC squared as a CISSP, I'm automatically a member of that. But other things outside of that that are good because one, their websites also help you with connections with other people because they have like things like LinkedIn or they have member directories and stuff like that. Like the Institute of Internal Auditors. For me as an auditor, although I'm not an internal auditor, it has a lot of good information. They have audit plans and audit guidelines. They have a lot of stuff on cybersecurity audit guidelines, which is useful just for me for that, but also for that because actually I deal with 3 or 4 other professional contacts that I have and I've done stuff with in the past have been internal auditors. So for me, being a member of that institute is very helpful. Because the bulk of my clients at Mays & Associates are cities or municipalities, districts and stuff like that, also joined the ICMA, which is the International City County Management Association. It's managers of cities and counties and other municipalities that joined that organization. And it's international, and they got a lot of good information about, how should cities use social media is one of the things that I had seen in there. Now that was of an interest to me as an auditor who audits cities. That's kind of useful information to kind of know, what is that industry, cities, what are they doing with things like social media and stuff like that. So it's very useful in my career to be involved in those things. But in addition to that, also just being able to make connections in those areas. So the extra information, if you have any organizations that you're a part of, that's always a good thing. Recommendations. I definitely recommend that you do recommendations whenever you can. The reason for that is if you give a recommendation, then usually LinkedIn will say, hey, this person gave you a LinkedIn or gave you a recommendation. How would you like to give them a recommendation? And the more recommendations you have, the better off you are. Well, one, because some of those may actually play a part in the hiring decision, or not necessarily the hiring decision, but the decision of who to call in for an interview. One of the good things about this too, and even if you're just doing it, LinkedIn, not necessarily to find a new job, but because you have a job and you're looking for billable work or something like that, it's also useful to have these recommendations in there, because when you have the recommendations, when people go by your profile, they say, hey, this is a real person, first of all, obviously, because look at all these other people endorse them. But you notice with LinkedIn, there's no way to get around, there's no anonymous ones. It puts the person's name who is actually making, so they're kind of like on the hook, and so are you when you make a recommendation for somebody. You're kind of on the hook for that. So again, these are things I wouldn't give out lightly. If it's people you know and you know that they can do those things, then I'd make the recommendation. As an instructor, I've oftentimes been asked by students, hey, can you give me a recommendation because I'm looking for a job? One thing I've noticed, when you go to apply for jobs and stuff like that, a lot of times they would tell you they only want you to fill out the application in a one-page resume. Don't submit anything else. My wife has applied at a couple different places, and they won't take letters of recommendation if you have them. But here's the way you can get around that. If you have them on LinkedIn, in other words, if you get the recommendation on LinkedIn, then on your resume you can have a link that takes them to LinkedIn. So although in the hiring process they won't allow you to put in a letter of recommendation, but on your resume you have LinkedIn, and if they click on it, then they can see recommendations. Plus they go with you. You don't have to worry about, did I lose that one? Who did it? They're a lot easier to manage and stuff like that. I have a bunch of written recommendations that I had from a long time ago, probably not really relevant today, but it's really useful when you have them on LinkedIn, because you don't have to worry about them, don't have to manage them. They're just there. And again, this helps give your profile a bump up, right? So more likely to be seen. LinkedIn has groups. Joining groups can help your career path. Click on things or join groups that are related to you. Again, there's another limitation here. You're limited to 50. You can't join more than 50 groups. And if you did, I don't know how you'd keep track of everything. So pick them wisely. Look for groups that have more activity, because I've seen I had 50 groups, and I went and looked in it the other day because there was another group I wanted to join in on. And when I went to log into it, it wouldn't let me go into it because I had 50. So I went back and looked at all the groups that I was in, and I found out, there's a bunch of groups in here that have no activity in them. So what good is it for me to actually be a part of this? So I decided I'm just going to cancel some of the memberships to those groups because nobody's doing anything, and what's the point? So taking a look at that. Other thing is getting involved in group discussions that are on those groups. So here's an example of a cybersecurity as a business issue, and I forget what the name of this group is, but they're very active and they're always posting stuff, and I learn a lot of information sometimes from them because they'll go find blogs that talk about certain things. But also it's a way for you to be involved and get to know other people. I've actually met people on LinkedIn that are now friends of mine that we now do work together and stuff like that because we were engaged in a group on LinkedIn. So definitely think it's a good thing to do. And I hesitate that I think that I shouldn't have to say this, but because I see some stuff on LinkedIn, I think I do, and that is you got to keep it all professional. This is a professional site, and you should always keep it professional. What you did at a party last weekend is probably not appropriate for LinkedIn. Probably don't want to put it on Facebook either. But anyways, all right, interact, keeping in touch with other people. So there are people in your network, people that you're connected to. You'll see pop-ups that say they've had a work anniversary or something like that. It's always, and LinkedIn will give you the option to, say congratulations or something. Definitely think it's worth doing. Again, keeping it professional, but putting in stuff like that if there's a notification, or if a friend of yours posts something that you found useful, you have the ability to like it. At least that gives them some feedback that that whatever you posted was useful information. For example, like when I was getting ready for this class, I posted that on LinkedIn just saying, hey, that this is the thing I'm going to do. And it also gives you an ability to keep track of how many people actually viewed it, how many people commented on it. And you can see that it'll be on the sidebar in LinkedIn when you're on the dashboard and it lists all the activity underneath it. To the right, you'll see stuff like this, like who viewed your updates. And then if you share something new, it keeps track of that. And it tells how many people are closely related to you and how many people are extended related to you. So it gives you that ability. Again, I would keep it all professional, but also people can find stuff. One of the people that I ran into, he's like he's a cybersecurity professional, but he's a CISO for a city in Southern California. Interesting thing, I ran across his profile because he was posting very interesting security articles that were very useful for me. And so when I ended up following him just because he was putting actually good information out there. Other stuff that you can look at, how many connections you have, how many people in your network, groups that you might like. It looks at the groups you have and groups that friends of yours have. It also suggests some companies that you may want to follow based upon your career and what other people are following that are following the same things that you are. So LinkedIn does try to give you a lot of hints for stuff. So take a look at those things. Like the groups, again, don't be afraid to leave a group and join another group or whatever it is in order for you to get the best out of it that you possibly can. Other thing also, if you see somebody in their profile, they say LION, Lion, that stands for LinkedIn Open Networking or Network or whatever it is. And it's people that have agreed that if you will connect to them, that they will automatically connect back to you. So basically what they're saying is connect to me no matter what. Now LinkedIn, normally if you find somebody, you just can't just link to them. You have to know them or you have to be introduced to them by somebody that you both know. So you can't just say, hey, I want to add this person to my network. You actually have to have some knowledge of them or have their email address as proof that you know them. And then it sends them an email and then they have to accept it, obviously. But if you see a lion, then usually somewhere in their profile, they've put their email address that you can use. Or if you are clicking on them, you can also say, I know this person and then it'll give a list of all the places you've worked. You select one, you send it off, and then anyone that has Lion will generally always connect with you, just as a thing. Now, a lot of people try to connect to me, and I don't always connect with everybody that connects to me. If they're in security or whatever it is, I'll connect with them if they look like it's a real profile and it's not, and there's a possibility of maybe in the future needing their services or wherever they work for their services. Sometimes I'll connect with that. I connect with all my students who want to. I recommend they connect on LinkedIn and not Facebook and stuff like that. So, and so all this adds up. So when you take a look at this, this is from 2012, but it says, hey, you had the top 5% viewed LinkedIn profiles for the year 2012. They have 200 plus million members, and in 2012 mine was the most viewed. Well, because I just went through and I showed you kind of how it is, and I filled out as much as I possibly could in my profile. There's like one or two other things that you can add in, but any of those other things, and when you add that in, you become more searchable, and because you're more searchable, more people view you. And in a very competitive job market, you want to be able to be found quickly. And so in order to be found quickly, you want to make sure that you have a very clean profile and you cover enough information and use all the terms that are necessary for people that are going to be searching for the type of person that you are, the job that you're looking for. And if you do that, you can get, top 5%. That means 95% of the other people weren't being as viewed as much as I was. And it's not hard to tell. If you look at a lot of people's profiles, they don't have a lot there. In fact, I looked at one person. He sent me a link, and he says, hey, maybe we can do some business together. I went to one of your presentations, and I said, okay, I'll link with him. I looked at his profile, and he's only got 4 years of job history. The guy's got to be like he's got to be in his 50s or whatever it is. And he's only got 4 years of work history, and I'm like, what has he done all his life? He's got to be like his 50s, and he's only showing 4 years of what he's done. And that's the only thing that's on his profile. So he probably just set it up because somebody linked to him and he says, oh, I'll put in my stuff. He hasn't put anything else in. So when I look at that, now if I was hiring the guy, I probably would not put him at the top of the list Because I'd be like, okay, what has this guy done for all these years? Did he work at Taco Bell the whole time? You know, um, I'm sure they have IT people at Taco Bell, but I was talking more of being a server. If you're going to hire somebody from IT, you want to know that they have a track record and all that kind of stuff. I get connections all the time from people in weird countries like Iran or something like that. I usually don't connect to them. Every once in a while, somebody who's in cybersecurity who is in India, I may connect to. Um, because I've actually found that a lot of those people are also in some of the same groups that I am. Anyways, you don't have to connect to people if you don't want to, but the more people you connect to, the more stuff you can get. So, is there any questions? And by the way, if you want to sign up for upcoming events 2 weeks from now, or not next week, but the week after, first week of March, we're going to do an intro session to the risk management framework, which is what NIST uses. It's the NIST security standards. But other than that, and if you want to look at our website that we've kind of set up, I'm going to be one of the trainers. Some of the other trainers are on here today as guests, but they may be teaching other topics in the future. If you go to our Trainers Underground, which should be trainersunderground.com, although I just set it up, and I don't know if the DNS is propagated yet, so it may not work. But if you go to trainersunderground.com in the next few days, you should be able to get to it. Their information will be listed, and any of the sessions that they do will be then, you can click on their name and see the sessions that they do in the past. But as ones come up in the future, if you go to our Eventbrite page, you can then see them. So is there any questions on this, or anybody want to add anything?
The only thing I'd want to add there, Donald, is just to reiterate that if you're going to use LinkedIn, use a professional photo. Don't have a Facebook photo of you holding up a can of beer or a mud crab or something like that. So many people put in a request to connect with me, and I look at their photo and I go, you're dressed in a singlet and you're holding up a can of beer and you're wanting me to connect professionally? No.
Yeah, I noticed one the other day that someone wanted me, and it was obviously, I thought it was spam when I first saw it, because it was a young lady that wanted to connect, and it was like some kind of made-up sounding place, and but it was like one of those pictures that almost looks like, like it's definitely going to be spam. You know what I mean? Like one of those doctored up pictures. So no, yeah, those ones I don't connect with either.
Yeah. And people have got to realise it's a professional organisation, not a Facebook friends type organisation. So that's about the only thing I want to say. Other than that, I just want to say thank you so much for running the event today, mate. It's been really great. And as much as I hate to love you and leave you, I've got to race off now because 9 o'clock Saturday morning and I've got lots of things to do. So thank you again, Donald, for doing it, mate.
Thanks, Wayne. Anybody else have anything? Somebody's typing something, so I will wait for that. 2 people are typing stuff. No, that was great. Okay. There's another one coming in. Well, while they're typing that in, just to let you know, you have to have a disclaimer. These are my views and nobody else's views. So don't sue anybody. It's all as is. And the license for this, because it'll be video and it'll be posted on YouTube, is for Creative Commons, and it is for non-commercial use only. Thank you very much for everybody.